In the end, the Ohio political establishment prevailed. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News. Daryl Rowland, public affairs editor for the Columbus Dispatch. Marianne Sharkey, public affairs consultant. And Sandy Tice, Democratic strategist. It took a lot of money, probably more than he wanted to spend, but Mike DeWine is the Republican nominee for Ohio governor. DeWine easily beat Mary Taylor in Tuesday's primary. He captured nearly 500,000 votes and beat Taylor by 20 percentage points.
My number one priority has always been to protect Ohio families. And let me make this very, very clear, that for me, this is not a job. For me, it is my mission.
The victory ended a very nasty primary battle that featured a slew of negative ads filled with name-calling, but Republicans, including Taylor, promised to unify. Sandy Tice, what does that mean when Governor Kasich says that DeWine still has to earn his endorsement going forward for the November election?
It means that Governor Kasich's going to have a hard time stepping out of the limelight. Mike DeWine has already come out and said he doesn't support Medicaid expansion. That's bad for the opioid problem in Ohio. That's bad for the medical economy, which is a really important part of our economy. And by doing the things and saying the things that he did in this campaign, he is so far to the right that he's out of the mainstream. He came out again for defunding Planned Parenthood. That provides more preventive care for women than anybody in the nation. Women are grumpy, if you haven't noticed. We're grumpy. Get out of our reproductive rights. I just think his better days are behind him, and I'm pretty excited about the Democratic slate.
What does it say, though, about unity when the Republican governor says the Republican nominee to replace him has to earn his endorsement? Marianne Sharkey?
I think it's a little strange, actually. I was surprised he answered the question that way. I mean, I think he should have said, you know, I'm going to have a private meeting and we're going to be a unified party and we're all going to come out. I mean, John Kasich is now running his own party, I mean, nationally and now statewide. But, I mean, he's still a popular governor. He still does well in the polls. And I'm sure Mike DeWine's going to be happy to get his endorsement. And I'm sure he's going to get his endorsement. But it is a little odd.
Well, what about that? Kenny?
Well, to be fair, Attorney General DeWine isn't going to totally dismantle the Medicaid expansion. He wants to keep it for the opioid population. But again, we're talking about 700,000 Ohioans with health care. He says that costs too much. He wants to keep the opioid population on. He wants to get a waiver from the federal government. And then the details get kind of hazy beyond that about how you make the numbers add up. We'll pay for this group and not sure about this group. In a sharp contrast to Richard Cordray, who, by the way, voluntarily said, hey, Republicans, you know, I'm for the Medicaid expansion. Hey, I'm for Jobs Ohio, if it's a little more transparent. Hey, Governor Kasich, how about endorsing me? Which ain't going to happen. As his spokesman said, you know, he's not going to endorse Elizabeth Warren's friend.
Is there a race to see which party is more unified right now, Laura Bischoff?
You know, I think that they're like Marianne said, they're going to come together. I think the Republicans are going to come together. The Democrats are going to come together. You've already seen like Joe Schiavone's endorsing Richard Cordray. And I think that, you know, party unity is going to be really crucial for each side going into the fall election. The candidates have to repair their, mend their fences with their base, and then they also have to excite people and reach out to the middle.
You know, there's a lot of ruffled feathers over the ECOT issue right now. It continues to burble up, you know, and percolate right now. And I'm wondering if that could create some schisms in the Republican Party going forward. Who's going to want to be identified with that?
Well, as it is, we saw after the audit from Auditor Dave Yost came out this past week, we saw a number of candidates giving money to charity that they had received from ECOT and its affiliated people. And I think that it's just become so toxic that they really don't want to have anything to do with it anymore.
It could be the COINGATE of this election. It's getting to be a very big election. The Dispatch reported today FBI's coming in. So once the FBI comes in, you've got the big boys in, and you're going to have a real investigation.
That's what came to my mind, COINGATE.
Right. One party brought the charter schools to Ohio John Husted killed the Legislative Office of Education Oversight in its 15th year, right after it was starting to spot some pretty serious trends with the charter schools. And one party got almost every nickel of the $3 million that Team Lager has given. So it's going to be hard for any Republican to distance themselves from this. And Mike DeWine has consumer protection duties and law enforcement duties. What's he done about this? Nothing.
And on the give back, there are a few exceptions who are not giving up their money. Mike DeWine's running mate being one of them. Got $36,000, John Husted did. As Sandy said, you know, he was a very strong charter school proponent, ECOT specifically, spoke at their graduations, things of that nature. But he says, hey, I don't have any more money because I gave it all to Mike DeWine, so I don't have any money to give up now. But yet it's in their gubernatorial campaign. The other group that so far at least has not given up money is the Republican House Caucus, which got well into six figures. So we'll see. You talk about divides within the Republican Party. You know, if it's 30, 40,000, yeah, I'll give that up. But we're talking real money, maybe not.
Yeah, right. He got into the race late. He was on the wrong side of the gun issue for many liberal Democrats, and his personality falls along the low-key range. But Richard Cordray is one win away from returning the governor's office to the Democrats. Cordray cruised to victory. We thought Dennis Kucinich had a chance, or at least a chance to show. Instead, Cordray racked up nearly 3 times the votes, with Joe Schiavone and Bill O'Neill finishing far behind. Cordray promises to fight for ordinary Ohioans in the fall campaign.
You send your tax dollars to Columbus, but they don't come back to strengthen our communities. Instead, they often go to the wealthiest Ohioans who need them the least. At the same time, our state legislature is fascinated with these narrow political fights and ideological squabbles that are strangely disconnected from the needs of most Ohioans. That needs to change, and it will.
One thing that never changes, Laura Bischoff, is that Democrats have to work extra hard to turn out the vote. Can a Rich Cordray excite the base enough to get out the vote in November 2018?
You know, in listening to him over the last 5 months, initially, like, his rollout speech was a little clumsy, but I think you've seen him evolve a little bit. On Tuesday, when he made his victory speech at the primary, I thought it was one of his stronger, more focused speeches. It only went on for like 8 minutes or so. I think that he needs to continue to hone his message and try to make sure that he's every day trying to speak to everyday Ohioans about regular issues that they care about.
The turnout wasn't so hot on for the primary, Darrell Rowland, among Democrats. I guess the point is, it was typical.
Well, yeah, overall, about 1 out of every 5 eligible registered voters turned out to vote, which is pretty pathetic because everyone had something to vote on the congressional redistricting issue, which did end up passing among those who did vote. But still, 80% said, nah, not going to bother. Whatever those politicians want to do to me, I'll let them do it. So you can see I might have a point of view on that issue. But there are, right now, because of the 2016 primary, Trump versus Kasich, there are a lot more registered Republicans in the state than Democrats. The big question is what's going to happen this year. The first statewide election out of the box, Republicans did show up in greater numbers, so that says something. Now, it's not the same proportion as happened in 2016. So we'll see how this plays out on fall. But your question is very astute. At the top of the ticket, can make or break it. We saw what happened 4 years ago with Ed Fitzgerald, just basically took the whole ticket down with him.
I haven't seen the Democrats this united or excited for a very long time. Cordray got 86 out of 88 counties. In 20 counties, he got more than 70% of the vote. Immediately, Joe Schiavone and Dennis Kucinich came out and said, I'm going to support the nominee. And the Democrats are tired of losing. We've been losing for a long time. And I think they see this ticket as a chance to finally win. And they see this social conservative bent coming out of Mike DeWine and this ECOT scandal as things that can really help propel them to victory when their team is going to focus on the economic issues. That's what voters want to hear about.
I'm not super familiar with Betty Sutton on the hustings. What does she bring to the ticket?
Well, I think she's very popular in Northeast Ohio. And when she was in Congress, she did cash for clunkers, and she infused much-needed capital into the supply chain right when it was ready to collapse. And that's important. All the big automakers and auto parts makers in Ohio sell the same suppliers. And she's the rare Democrat with important job creation credentials. She did the amendment to the ACA when she was in Congress that made the pre-existing condition ban take effect immediately. Obamacare is popular. It wasn't repealed and replaced. It was almost killed. So I think she has a good economic message too.
You know, it's interesting. The Democrats, like Sandy said, they're tired of losing, and they've been losing a lot. The Republicans have
For
held,
good reason, right?
The Republicans have held the governor's office for 24 of the last 28 years.
In a swing state.
And not only that, but Sherrod Brown is the only Democrat to hold statewide elective office. They used to have there was 50% more, but then Bill O'Neill resigned so he could run for governor.
Speaking
of which.
Speaking of Sherrod Brown, he has an opponent in November after a battle between two big Donald Trump boosters. The victor, Congressman Jim Renacci, and Cleveland businessman Mike Gibbons. Renacci entered the race late, but ended up taking the nomination by a solid 15 percentage points. Marianne Sharkey, Sherrod Brown is a formidable opponent. He is the incumbent, of course. What does Renacci's win in the primary tell us about how he might run for the general?
Well, I mean, Renacci's going to run as a Tea Party Republican, a Trump Republican. He was the only candidate who actually got Donald Trump's endorsement during the statewide campaign. So he's clearly going to tie himself to Trump. And whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, we're about to find out. I'm not sure it's a good idea for him to do that. But Sherrod Brown out-Trumps Trump on the issues when it comes to trade and when it comes to tariffs. I mean, no one can beat Sherrod Brown on those issues, particularly in eastern Ohio, where Sherrod is an absolute hero. And that's where Trump did very well, in the Youngstown area and all those areas, the coal mining areas. So I think it's going to be very hard for Renacci to carry the Trump mantle in those areas of the state where they know Sherrod Brown and they know where he stands on the issues.
Sherrod Brown also has he just has sort of a love for retail politics. I've seen him on the rope line, and he just really soaks it up. And I haven't really seen that from Renacci. He's a amicable guy. He's friendly enough, but he doesn't really seem to really have those natural political skills.
We're going to see lots of money from outside Ohio pouring into this race. I mean, we saw it 6 years ago when Senator Brown ran against Josh Mandel. Arguably, Congressman Renacci is a stronger candidate than Josh Mandel. Perhaps not as good of a fundraiser, although he's got his own money. He's one of the richest members of Congress. Could this be how much effort does President Trump want to pour into this? Sherrod Brown's got a target on his back because he is a Democratic senator in a red state. They're an endangered species in a way. They want to knock another one off the perch. So high stakes here. You're going to see, by the end of the campaign, both these people are going to be hated in a lot of quarters just because of all the stuff that's going to be said about them, true or otherwise.
It's going to be one of those years, isn't it?
Yes, it
Aren't
is.
they all? Just as they did a few years ago with state legislative districts, Ohio voters voted for more of a say in how politicians draw congressional maps. Issue 1, a new set of rules to limit gerrymandering, passed easily, with yes votes topping no votes by a 3-to-1 margin. That means that starting after the 2020 census for the 2022 election cycle, lawmakers will face new guidelines and incentives to compromise and draw districts that are more compact and, in theory, more competitive, which in theory will inspire members of Congress to respond to more than just their political bases. Sandy Tice, how long before voters start to see any balance that will be notable? I mean, it starts in 2022, but there's not going to be any. It's going to be very incremental.
It is going to be incremental, but we are a swing state. We elected Sherrod Brown at least twice, Barack Obama twice, Bill Clinton twice, and we have 16 congressional districts, and 4 of those seats are held by Democrats because 4 of them were made for Democrats and 12 were made for Republicans. So any progress is going to be better. Like you said, they don't start the process until after the 2020 census, so it's not going to be till 2024 or so. It's a long time to wait, but it's been a long fight.
There's also a power of incumbency. People don't like Congress, but they like their member of Congress. And so I think that it's going to take a while before folks just sort of say, well, the guy who's been in there is just not working for me.
Well, there's also the money bags of incumbency.
Right.
Sure. And I think we have to watch about overselling how this is going to make things competitive everywhere, because there's no way you're going to draw a Democratic district out of Northwest Ohio, for instance. There's no way you're going to draw a Republican district, from downtown or inner city Cleveland or Columbus. So there's certainly going to be Democratic areas and Republican areas just for geography, because that's one of the things they want to eliminate is the snake on the lake, up stretching from Toledo to western Cleveland. Districts like that, Ted Strickland's old district down along the Ohio River, crazy looking districts. You look at a map and it's like, should be in the Museum of Modern Art or something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can see Congress districts? I don't know.
Well, I think my first exposure to that, I thought, how can they do this with a straight face? They would, but they did. They did.
Yeah, they took Toledo and did snake it clear across. Actually, I'm in this district. And all the way into the middle
belly
of
of the
Cleveland.
snake.
Yeah, that's right, on the belly of the
I
snake.
like to call it the beachfront district myself.
Well,
but
actually,
snake
it's
along the
easier
way.
to go by boat on this district than it is on the highway.
There will be a Democratic district in Cincinnati if they do this right. And in Franklin County, which is blue, very, very blue, right now we have one Democratic member of Congress and 2 Republicans. I think that's going to
That might
change.
change, yeah.
So that alone would be a better split.
Well, what won't change, though, is they're going to still have to protect Joyce Beatty and Marcia Fudge. And you're still going to have this majority-minority districts, which does dilute the Democratic vote in other nearby districts.
Joyce is not a majority-minority. She's an opportunity district because of the demographics of it. But you're right, they'll be protecting Joyce.
Right.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is this just shows how popular this is with voters. We did this with legislative districts, 3 years ago? It sailed through by a huge majority. And with congressional districts, all the teeth grinding and gnashing among the politicians trying to get this out. I think voters love it. I think they recognize it's not perfect, okay, but it's sure a heck of a lot better than what we have now. It's worth a try. Let's go for it.
Are Republicans worried about it long term, that this could be a change, and that the interests, the powers that be, will start to shift their funds?
Well, yes, Republicans are very worried about it. I mean, a lot of Republicans are saying, why did we even do this to ourselves? But, Casey came out in favor of it. But yes,
chamber.
it's sort of the chamber.
I mean, they were under
Yeah.
pressure from Kasich, from this whole coalition, the Fair Districts, Fair Elections Coalition, which was like 18 or
That was
20
key.
different entities, and they were collecting signatures to force it to go to the ballot. So that made the lawmakers think, we got to come up with a deal or they're going to take all of the power away from us and we're not going to have any say in this. And so it forced them to the negotiating table.
And now everybody's kind of happy or kind of unhappy about it.
I think there
The
were
classic compromise.
There were some members of the business community who I think really would like to see the business climate improve and not all this focus on God's, gays, and guns. And they're a little more quiet about that, but there was some strong support behind the scenes, just as there was in the one that redid the process for making the legislative maps.
Can they tweak it down the line? I mean, is that expected that there'll be changes and tweaks with this process down the line? Or because it's ensconced in the Constitution?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a heavy lift. It took so long and it took so much effort to get this to the ballot and to get it passed. I mean, it passed easily, but to get everybody at the table to come up with this compromise, it took years. And so I just don't think that anybody's going to say, well, let's open Pandora's box again and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the dynamics are going to be different, after the 2020 census. Ohio almost certainly will lose yet another congressional seat. We'll be down to 15 because we've not grown as fast as many other states in this country. So after the census, we're down to 15. So at least it's not going to be 12-4 anymore. We're going to be pretty well assured of that. But what Mary Ann brought up, and Sandy as well, about the Civil Rights Act protections to basically guarantee, not take away black representation rights. That's been emphasized less and less by the Justice Department and federal courts. It'd be interesting to see where that stands from a legal standpoint, 4-6 years down the road when we're making this sausage.
Are you expecting lawsuits then?
Oh, there's always going to be lawsuits.
I'm sorry, stupid question. Okay.
Unless we take up Shakespeare's suggestion, which I'm not suggesting.
What was I thinking?
I covered redistricting over 20 years ago,
Right.
and U.S. Supreme Court heard one of the Ohio cases. That's how long this has been going on.
Exactly, exactly. There's a whole list of things. The 12th congressional district likely will model for the nation the impact of any blue wave this fall. Now we have candidates. On the Democratic side, Franklin County Treasurer Danny O'Connor easily topped the field. The real fight was on the Republican side. Establishment candidate State Senator Troy Balderson of Zanesville narrowly beat Liberty Township trustee and far-right candidate Melanie Lenahan. Daryl Rowland, on its face, this looks cut and dry. Two standard bearers, ultimately, I guess, shooting for an open seat. Does the Republican automatically, though, have something of an advantage?
Well, I think so, sure. This is a district where Trump carried, not by a huge margin, but by a clear margin. This district, although it's obviously, again, it's changed throughout the redistricting process, has been Republican since 1982, since John Kasich took it away from an incumbent Democrat way back then. All of us who cover politics have heard that story at one time or another. It was John Kasich to 2000, Pat Tiberi ever since. So there's a lot bigger Republican tradition than maybe some of these other districts around the country that are flipping. But by the same token, you're right. This will be a harbinger of how big the wave may be rising. And it's one of these weird double races. We're going to vote in August. We in the 12th Congressional District
Oh, that's right.
will vote in August as a special election just to see who's going to serve out the last 4 months of the year, essentially. That's the rest of the Congressman Tiberi's term. And then you vote again in November, the general election, for the following full 2-year term. So we could have 2 go-rounds of this, but August will be the one that gets the attention because they figure whoever wins that will be the favorite in the fall. Plus, it's going to be the only game in town, the only game in the country. That means, again, sorry, folks, lots more money. You think you saw TV ads this time? Wait till you see how nasty Troy Balderson and Danny O'Connor are now.
Who knew?
After you see this. Yeah, exactly.
Whoever wins in August can run as an incumbent, right?
Right.
Yes, they will. Yes, because they will be seated virtually, I mean, as soon as the vote is certified, because that's the unexpired term of Congressman Tiberi.
The reason why Tiberi really didn't run again was the indivisible groups tormented him. They picketed outside his office every week. They picketed outside his house. They had a cardboard cutout flat Pat because he refused to come to town hall meetings. When he told women in his district that they should buy their IUDs over the counter, which a doctor has to put those in, they did this call Pat Tiberi and tell him there are no DIY IUDs campaign. He was flooded with calls. I haven't seen people sustain the activism like I've seen with these Central Ohio indivisible groups, and that's going to be a really important factor in this race.
They were, they were outside his office in downtown Columbus, hot, cold, rain or shine. There may have been only a handful, maybe 20 or so, but there's always a presence there.
Yep, it was fun to watch.
A lot of money pouring into this one as well.
Well, yeah, and mentioning Congressman Tiberi, again, Troy Balderson is his candidate. He's endorsed him, and Congressman Tiberi is a huge war chest, and he can spend all of it, as in $5 or $6 million of it, for his hand-picked person. That can buy a lot of ads, even in Columbus.
Right. That means the Democrats have to balance it out. I mean, they have to pony up.
Well, the Democrats are going to see this as an opportunity.
Right.
And they're going to pour just as much resources as they can possibly pour into this race.
I know that the district's kind of changed. I mean, it's much more suburban. It's different. It's a different suburban district than it was, 25 years ago.
Right, and I think the Democrats smell opportunity here, but I agree with Daryl. I think it's predominantly a Republican district. It's going to be an uphill battle for Democrats. However, I think there's a lot more enthusiasm for federal offices among Democrats right now. They're kind of feeling the blue wave that they're banking on.
And frankly, it's probably worse news for Democrats, just from a solely political standpoint, that Troy Balderson is the nominee on the Republican side rather than Melanie Lenahan, who was a far-right candidate, and she loved it. She has no problem being labeled that. She embraced that ideal during the campaign. Came close, but didn't quite make it. But if she would be the nominee, then Democrats would really smell an opportunity, because that would then mirror a lot of the other congressional districts around the country where things have flipped.
Far-right candidates didn't do very well in this cycle.
Right.
Which is interesting, because we kept hearing this was going to be the Trump year and they were going to do very well in the Tea Party and all that, but they did not do well in their primaries.
You know, what's interesting is that Renacci got the endorsement, explicit endorsement from the president, but others who tied themselves to Trump, like Christina Hagan, Melanie Linehan, and
Mary Taylor.
they all lost out.
Okay, it's time for our final off-the-record parting shots. Start with you, Sandy Tice.
I think women are going to be the hero of this election year. We have record-setting numbers of women running for Congress, running for the Ohio House, running for the Ohio Senate. We have a woman who was one of Trump's groping victims running. She was inspired by the Me Too movement. She's a first-time candidate. The only place our numbers really matters in the voting booths. Go women.
Marianne Sharkey.
Well, I second her motion. I was going to say women are going to be important, but I'll go with the Cavs. The Cavs are going to win. are going to the national finals.
All right, Darrell Rowland.
Well, I'm going to stick with women, but I'm just going to do a cop-out and say Happy Mother's Day to everyone. But also, an additional thought, you know, there's a lot of people out there like me who've lost their mothers. There's others who tried to be mothers but couldn't. So hopefully there's joy there as well.
Laura Bischoff.
Hey, it's graduation season. Congratulations to all the high school and college kids.
Okay. I guess all I can say to all of that is second what everyone else said except for the Cavs, and tell you that that's Columbus on the record for this week. Please check us out online. We're on Facebook and Twitter. You can connect to all of that on our website. I'm Ann Fisher. Have a great week.